The name is Max Etingin. I was born in 1927, and the city I was born was Vilna, Poland.
Max, what was your life like when you were a child?
It was very good. Except for some traces of anti-Semitism in Poland, my life was very good. Mother was from Dokshiks, Belarusia, and father was really domesticated in Vilna. My father was, in the last couple of years, had showroom of cars.
Aha. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I have a brother, still have a brother, 3 years younger. I went to a Jewish school. It was a very good life.
When is the first shadow of Hitler coming into your world?
When he came in to Poland in '39, parents were scared. We did not realize too much what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
It started to touch very personally when he moved in to our part of Poland, which was at that time more Lithuania than Poland. When Hitler moved in to our section, all kinds of restrictions were put on.
Do you remember how you felt then as a child?
Very depressed,
And your parents?
extremely depressed.
Do you remember being in the ghetto?
I remember very well. I was from the very first day of the ghetto in Vilna.
What was that like?
It was the way they moved in everybody from the community into the ghetto was just a terrible scenery.
What happened to your home?
The home was bombed out in the first day of war. We had a friend who told us chances are that that's going to be our house will be inside the ghetto, so come and move in before. We had enough food from the beginning. What the worst part was the intimidation by the Germans. Oh, not only them, but also the Lithuanians, who became very close to the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
The local population was really pro-German.
Did your father continue to work outside the ghetto?
He worked outside of the ghetto, and so did I.
What did you do?
Shovel snow.
How old were you? You were very young.
I was in the ghetto, must have been, I was 13 or 14 years old.
Mm-hmm. Max, were you scared all the time, or somehow?
No, in the ghetto. When you're in the ghetto, you're scared all the time.
What are you scared of?
Of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You're scared of tomorrow, and you're scared of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because people started to disappear. My father's brother disappeared.
And what did disappeared mean to you?
Disappeared means taken off when you go to work, taken off the street.
In the ghetto, are you seeing Nazi soldiers or only Lithuanian?
You saw mostly Lithuanian soldiers, and you saw also Jewish policemen.
How did you feel about the Jewish policemen? Were they your friends or your enemies?
Probably in the beginning they were friends, and after a while they became enemies. They were guarding the ghetto, and they were searching people who were coming from work into the ghetto.
When you went in and out of the ghetto, were you searched?
Yes,
Was that scary?
yes, it's scary. We were in the ghetto probably 1 year. Then we found out that the ghetto is going to be liquidated. And we started, and my father started to look for possibilities of hiding. He used to meet people outside of the ghetto and talk to them until we established at one point some people who were friendly to father who sort of indicated that if we're in trouble, they're willing to help non-Jews. They helped one day the day that the ghetto was liquidated, we sneaked out from the ghetto and we went to those people. They took us in originally, and then at night we had a conversation between them and their parents who were saying, you're going to get them killed and you're going to get yourself killed, you're going to get us killed. So after a while, that friend of father's dug out a hole beside his house, and we went into that hole for 10.5 months.
How does some family survive in a hole like that?
You survive when you have to survive, you survive. In fact, at times we felt in the hole safer than we felt in the ghetto.
Mm-hmm. How did you have food in the hole?
He used to bring food once a day and take away the waste.
This was a very courageous man who was helping
He
you.
is extremely courageous.
What was his name?
Bolesław Boratyński.
Was he a Catholic?
He must have been a Catholic.
Mm-hmm. So you're in this hole with your family, and
Right.
it's your mother, father, your brother, and you.
Right. My grandparents were at that time in a little shtetl when my mother was born, which was White Russia.
Did they survive the Holocaust?
No, they did not.
So you're in this hole for 10 months.
For 10.5 months.
You know, Max, it sounds impossible for some family to live like that for months and months and months. And you say, okay, you do.
Nothing is impossible. If you have to take it, you just take it, and it becomes possible.
How big was this hole?
This hole was probably about 5 feet long and about 3 feet high.
You couldn't stand up.
Couldn't stand up.
Could you see the outside?
There was a pipe driven in the center of the hole.
That's how you got air to
Yes.
breathe.
Yes.
How did the man get food and water down to you?
Okay. There was a opening at the beginning of the hole, like a knee, bend in the middle. So that's where he was bringing the food and taking away the waste.
You had very little movement
You
inside.
had little movement, and also at time you were lacking air.
Lacking air.
Yeah,
Was that scary?
not in the very beginning. Then it became scary.
You worried there wouldn't be enough air to breathe.
Right?
Fortunately, there always was.
Yes.
And if I were walking above the hole,
Yeah.
I would not have noticed it.
No, you would not, because on top of the hole there was grass and things were seeded.
Was there ever an instance in which you were almost discovered?
Well, at one time, it was a scary time when he came over and he said he has to take his family and go out and hide in the forest. That's where we became scared.
Because he wouldn't be there to give you food.
That's correct.
How long was he gone?
For 2-3 days.
You just survived.
We just survived.
Do you remember the mood of your mother and father when they were
Yeah.
in this hole?
It so happened that father was always in a very good mood. He was sort of cheering us up and telling us about his young age and so on. So father was cheerful, but mother was depressed.
Were you able to read in this hole?
A newspaper, barely.
How did you get light?
We had a very small kerosene
Lamp?
lamp.
And you could turn that on? Were you ever cold?
No, we were never cold.
Were you ever bored to death?
No, we were never bored to death.
How is that possible, Max?
Well, father kept us up
10 months?
10.5 months.
10.5 months your father entertained you?
That's correct.
Your father was a remarkable human being.
He was just an unbelievable human being.
You loved him very much.
Yes,
And you honor him till today.
very much.
It's your father who really got you through this.
That's correct.
At what point does that 10.5 months end? What happens next?
When we started to feel that the Soviet Union's army is coming closer to us, that's when we started to feel safer.
Once the Russian army arrives, are you safe?
Then we're safe.
But you do know there were others who were not as lucky as you.
Right.
What happened to them?
They were killed in a place outside of our town.
How?
They were mass murdered.
They were shot to death?
Yes.
When you think of that, isn't it almost unbelievable that human beings would take other people outside and just shoot them to death?
Nothing is unbelievable until you are introduced in the beginning to the atrocities. Then everything is becoming believable.
Were there times, Max, that you cried?
No, I didn't. I never cried.
Why?
Because you always were thinking you would like to see the end of it. You just wanted to know what will be the end.
It does come to an end for you, correct?
It came to an end when the guy came over and said, okay, the Russians are here, I can dig you out. Firstly, we couldn't walk, me and my brother, because we were sitting in that hole for 10.5 months. So all your limbs became, you couldn't walk.
Were you at all afraid of the Russians?
No, we were not afraid of the Russians.
They were good to you?
They were good to us, yeah, because mother and father come actually from a Russian background, and they even spoke at home Russian.
What happens to your life then? What does your father do? Where do you go?
Well, okay, what happened when we were sitting in that hole, we were planning what will happen in the future. So somehow we always said we'll end up in America. But when he dug us out in the beginning, me and my brother sort of on 04 ended up in the city, in Vilna. And then we went to the newest house that was built, and we took up a space. The war wasn't over yet, for in a long shot, the partisans came out from the forest, and most of the partisans were Jews. After a while, the Soviet Union said, you really are Polish citizens, so if you want to, you can move into Poland. So we registered and we're ready to go to Poland.
Did you?
We did.
You know, Max, the way the history is understood,
Yeah,
the Jews of Eastern Europe,
yeah,
the Jews of Poland, the Jews
Yeah.
of Lithuania,
right,
at the end of the war, the Jews of Hungary,
yeah,
they were all the main target of
Yeah.
Nazi Germany.
right,
Nazi Germany and Hitler's goal was to annihilate
right,
the Jewish people who were
Right.
believed to be subhuman in some way.
right.
It makes it sound that you, after the Russians came in, that threat was no longer
That's
present.
correct.
Yet there were many, many Jews killed
Right,
in the Soviet Union
right,
by Eisenstrapen Group
yes,
and others, yes?
right.
But this no longer is something that threatens you.
No, and we weren't aware of it.
You weren't aware of it.
No,
You were not aware of Kiev and Babi Yar.
we're away of Kiev and Babi Yar, but that was all Germans doing.
Yes. Once the Russians take over, you're safe.
Right,
The Russians, in many ways, were the ones who really defeated Hitler, yes?
Right,
American kids are brought up to think America won the
Right.
war. And we had a role in the war.
right.
But the war was won by the Russians.
That's correct.
And there's Leningrad and there's Stalingrad.
That's right.
At what point does your family begin to try to get to America?
Well, when we were traveling from Vilna to Poland, we heard that Roosevelt died. So that was, okay, that was just before we arrived into Poland.
Mm-hmm. Was Roosevelt a hero to you?
Yes, he was,
Because?
because he was, to us, single-handed fighting the Germans.
So how did you feel when he died?
Very sad.
Mm-hmm. It was like a protector had been lost.
That's correct.
Did you know anything about Harry Truman?
No, we did not.
But you're going to Poland. You want to come to America.
Right.
How did you get here?
My father, before the war, had some kind of representation of Swedish goods. So he got in touch with those people in Sweden, and they worked out for us a visa for Sweden, for temporary visa. So after being in Poland for a year, we moved to Sweden. Then they worked for me to be the first one to end up in the States.
You came alone
I came alone, right, by boat. Right?
to Ellis Island?
No, not to Ellis Island.
Where?
To Brooklyn, to New York. But my mother found an aunt in Brooklyn who said that I can be with her.
So you came to your aunt in Brooklyn.
Yes,
When you come to America, is it like coming to a different planet?
yes, it's like coming to a completely different planet in every way. You know, all of a sudden, you see the freedom, you see the food, and you are sort of like completely overtaken by a new world.
Ultimately, does the rest of your family come to America?
Eventually, after 5 years, my father and mother came to America, but my brother got a visa to Canada, so he came about a half a year ahead of my parents to Canada. He's a Canadian citizen.
Does your father have a hard time finding work in America?
Well,
In America?
no, he really adapted himself like fish in water.
How about you? Fish and water?
Yeah, I was in the beginning. You see, I ended up in Virginia, which Virginia had a little bit anti-Semitism. So in the beginning, I was not very comfortable. But after a while, I adapted myself like fish in water. When I first came, my father had cousins in Bridgeport, and they invited me to be with them, and that's where I started to learn English, and I started to adapt myself to new life. I went to college in Bridgeport for a year, and then I ended up in Virginia. In Virginia, VPI.
And that's where you graduated.
Right.
Then what did you do with your life? What did you do next?
After I graduated, I got a job in New York,
Doing what?
some design in electrical engineering.
At that point, if I had known you as a young man after college,
Right.
were you a happy person?
I probably, at that point, I was pretty happy.
Was the oppression of the Holocaust lifted from you now?
No, it's never lifted.
Never?
It still is there,
Even today?
even today.
You know, I asked you, Max, during your time in the ghetto and your time in the hole,
Yeah,
did you cry? You said no.
I never cried.
Have you cried since?
No, maybe I cry once in a while when I tell my children those stories from ghetto and from the hole. But usually I don't cry.
And forgive me for pressing you.
Go ahead. You're not pressing me.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 girls.
2 girls.
Right,
Okay. And your lovely wife is with us here.
yes.
60, how many years have you been married? 60?
16.
60? You've been married 62 years.
Right,
Rochelle.
right.
By the way, how did you meet Rochelle?
Okay, I was in New York and she came to study in New York,
She's Israeli.
Israeli.
Sabra.
Right, somebody introduced me to her, and after we dated a week, I told her I'll marry her.
You fell head over heels in love with her.
Right,
Well, she was sexy and wonderful, right?
yes,
And beautiful and terrific.
right. She still is.
She still is, darn right she is. So you fell in love with her right away, and you said
Right.
to her a week after you met her, we're going to get married.
Right.
What'd she say to you?
She said, I think, okay.
What did you say?
You're crazy.
She said you're crazy,
Right, in the beginning, sure.
but you won her over.
Yes,
You have 2 daughters.
right.
Where are they in life?
Okay, one of them is a doctor and one is a lawyer.
Isn't that fabulous?
It is unbelievable, fabulous. When I wake up once in a while, I cry from happiness.
Do they have families?
They have, each one has three children,
You have 6 grandchildren?
6 grandchildren.
Max, isn't it amazing from the whole, where Adolf Hitler, the Nazi,
Yeah.
they wanted to kill every one of you.
Right,
And now you have 6 grandchildren.
right. It is amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. How many great grandchildren?
Great grandchildren, 2.
2 great grandchildren.
Yeah,
So you have now 3 generations.
right.
Mazal tov.
Thank you.
That is wonderful. But it is really a symbol of Jewish triumph.
That's right. And every time I watch you on television, I say you are a symbol of Jewish triumph.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That is so sweet of you.
yeah.
Since you've been in America and built a life in America, how do you feel now? You're married to an Israeli.
Right.
How do you feel now about Israel?
I support it every way I can.
How important is Israel?
Very important,
Why?
because that's the only place where Jews can ultimately survive.
When I ask you about Israel,
Yeah,
you teared up.
yeah.
What about Israel touches your soul that way?
Everything about Israel touches my soul.
You've been to Israel,
I'm a great supporter.
and your wife still has family in Israel?
She still has some traces of family.
So do you travel to Israel with her sometimes?
Yes, we were many times.
And what about your children? Have they gone to Israel?
They were also many times.
Do you feel they have a feeling for Israel? Your children?
Definitely.
So here you are married to your wife.
Yeah.
You and Rochelle are married.
Yeah,
You're still kids, sort of.
right.
Yes? What line of business do you go into? What do
Well,
you do?
Originally, I was in electrical engineering, which I studied. And then what happened, my father started to syndicate real estate in New York. And one day he had a heart attack, and my mother asked me to come into the business to stay with him for 2 weeks. And I ended up to stay there 40 years.
Marvelous. Max, there are many survivors who don't want to talk, who've had a hard time talking.
Well, I talk once in a while to my children, but not much, and I don't like to talk about it.
It's hard for you to talk.
It's very hard to talk.
And yet you were kind enough to come here.
Oh, yeah, when I saw you on television and saw the job you're doing, when you called, I right away say, I would love to meet him.
Thank you. That is very flattering. Do you encourage survivors to talk, or do you feel they should be left alone?
No, I encourage survivors to talk,
Why?
because in another 10 years, there won't be many left of us. So we have to leave a trace.
You're a very wonderful, sweet human being.
Thank you.
It has been an honor for me to sit with
It
you.
is an honor for me to sit with you.
No, you are very kind. I hope you and I stay friends a long, long
Oh,
time.
we definitely will.
Okay, we definitely will.
We definitely
Okay,
will.
I love you very much.
I thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to meet with you and sit and talk with you.
Thank you, Max.
Because what happens is you put that, you know what I tell you, you put that in words on television and in publications that you know how to do it. And it's great.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jim, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.